Hey, welcome everyone to the Sketch Zone podcast. It's Carlos. Welcome back. We wanted to bring an incredible amount of talent to this show to basically offset what you guys are used to seeing. So that's why we are excited to have...
Excuse you, sir.
That's why we're excited to have... Hang on, I'm going to make sure I get his last name right. Patrick Hruby.
That's right.
Yay! Welcome to the show.
Thanks. I wish I could get that introduction everywhere I went.
I'm available.
Follow you around.
I'm available and affordable.
What's your Fiverr? What's your Fiverr rate to follow someone around?
Right,
Why
about
you
$5.
triggering?
All right, so before we go into Patrick's career as a professional artist, let's go ahead and welcome another professional artist, Charlie B. Williams III.
What's up, Sketch Zone Nation? I'm here, happy to be here, regardless of the weird shot Carlos gave me from Jack at the beginning here. But
happy Valentine's Day! I love you.
Oh, guess yeah, there it is. Great. Got like a black card over here. Get it? Yeah. Moving on.
Oh boy! Hey, before we go in way too deep, let's go ahead and welcome Jack Kasperzak.
Thank you. I'll just leave it at that.
Welcome everyone to the show again. And if you are watching live on YouTube, please feel free to enter any questions that you might have for any one of us on the panel. I wanted to start out with how many of you guys have seen this video of this young lady that used to work for
are we going
Disney?
right in?
Yeah, we're going right in on
We're going
on
right
this
to
one.
that.
Because I think, well, Patrick is a freelance artist, right? And I think what this young lady ended up doing is, she ended up going freelance, but I mean, that's what happens when you shit all over your career. But,
Yo, Carlos.
You let your opinion be known about this right off
really
the bat.
quick.
I know I have mixed emotions.
No, you don't.
I'm like an onion.
Mixed about your emotions.
I'm like
Okay,
an onion. I have
dial
different
it back.
layers.
What happened? What
It's
happened?
all flavor. You got one flavor right now. What's that?
Salt.
Put on your Anderson Cooper. What happened?
All right, so if you guys haven't heard, there was a young lady that 4 or 5 years ago, she started her career in the animation industry. She went to school, she racked up a whole bunch of debt, which it happens to a lot of us. And then she was in the animation industry for a good 5 years. And then she bumped up against some static in her career, and so she said screw it, and she quit Disney. And now, from what I understand, she's focusing on her own stuff, and she wants to grow her YouTube channel and all this good stuff, right? So does anyone want to chime in real quick with this one?
Yeah, I think she one of the things she ran into is that like she aspired to be a director one day or a showrunner. And
Right.
as she aspired to be that, she kind of got hit with after being just, I think she was a layout artist. After getting the veil pulled back, she started seeing some of the business side of things and started seeing some of the ways Disney is run from a corporate standpoint, and what kind of power each of the different roles have. And then with that being said, she also ran into some not so nice coworkers at times and stuff like that, and just company culture, clickiness and all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. So it was an amalgamation of a bunch of different things that led her to finally want to leave because she felt like she wouldn't really have creative control on the career path that she was going if she wanted to be a director, because they really don't have that much power. Showrunners have a little bit more, but not full. And she made note of saying that it's kind of like a separation of power. Everybody has a little bit of piece of the pie, and like the ones who really control more things than her and have ultimate control is the executives at the higher ups, And she gave a couple of different stories of different things that certain executives wanted to change on some of the shows that she's been on in the past, and it kind of showed how much power the leads and the directors really have. So it kind of put her in a funk with all the other like personality clashes she had with people on her team and general company culture. That's it.
Anyone else want to opinionate?
I haven't seen this yet, but
No, you haven't.
No.
Well, yeah, we dropped the link in the thing. Obviously, you can watch it afterwards. But yeah. So basically, she came out on Cartoon Brew, which is known for being somewhat what's the word?
They have all the tea.
Excitable. They are an excitable website, that's for sure.
They're a news website, and news websites are always going for the headlines.
Yeah,
soundbite. Yeah.
And I think the reason this got so much play is the clickbait title, which was former Disney employee quits job. Like it's this whole thing, and and it even went on with like a subtitle that was like cites toxic behavior and moronic executives, dull meetings and lies. It's like it was.
That was great. Yeah.
No, that's like
I'm
reading it verbatim.
Great. Yeah.
So they totally painted it like this dramatic thing, which when you watch the video is much less dramatic, but I still think her point stands is that the biggest thing that she got into the industry thinking it was going to be one thing and it turned out to be another, and she admits naivety through it. She admits a lot of lack of research, and she just wasn't expecting a lot of what it was, but. Right. Her basic premise was, I got into this industry to do art all day and do whatever I want and draw pictures and make designs and not really have anyone tell me what to do. And and I mean, she basically verbatim says that. Like, I really wanted to just be like a creator. Right. And then I got into the industry and I found out there's a ton of people that are going to tell me what to do. And I feel like my opinion doesn't really matter. And I feel like even if I get to be a director or a showrunner, even then I'll still have too many people to answer to. And then cites like a whole litany of things about weird interactions she had with coworkers and the working blah, 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 blah. So yeah, it's made quite the rounds. I gotta say, I've heard more people talking about this on the halls at work than I think I've ever heard industry news.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah.
All the other stuff. Wow. It really hit a nerve.
People are really, it definitely hit a nerve, I think, from many angles. Right. It did.
Right. And this is my point. This is why I say she didn't throw away her career, and that's not. I'm not trying to say that at all, but she did. I mean, when you make it to Cartoon Brew with like a little bit of negativity, people can read into it the wrong way, and this is why I say she affected her career negatively. Right? How many of us went to school? Hey, Jimmy. How many of us went to school wanting to be in whatever career we decided to go into, and then we get there, and it's nothing like what we wanted or what we expected, right? It's always, spoiler alert, it's always going to be different. It's always going to be different. Now, with that being said, even if you don't, and this is for, it doesn't matter where you are, or it doesn't even have to do with work. You can walk into a bar, and if you go in there and you talk a little bit badly about the people that go there, they're going to have a negative attitude about you. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you go.
Yeah, it just seems like a social rule.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people are super heated about this specifically because although on the one hand many people can relate, probably even people that are working at a studio, I think a lot of them can
Sure.
and do relate.
Mhm.
But going online and blasting it the way that she did kind of has a really I would venture to say I have heard 9 out of 10 negative responses to her in this video from people that work at a studio, which of course makes sense because she's blasting the studio.
Right.
But if you go online and you read the comments on Facebook, Cartoon Brew, and like her YouTube page, it's overwhelmingly positive. So, there's clearly a lot of people out there that support her and think that she did the right thing and that, yeah, screw the man and screw the corporate system. And I don't know if those are students, her followers, her fans, but there is clearly like a very clear division here in I honestly don't even think it's so much the content, it's the way that she handled it.
Content was what I was going to ask about because I haven't seen the content of it. And I guess that would kind of sort of change my opinion on whether it's something that you should talk about or not. But more so, I think it's going back to what Carlos was saying about managing expectations of like where your career is going or what you have to go through at certain points to get to where you want to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you have to be careful, even if she would have stayed in the industry.
Right.
You have to be careful the way you climb the ladder. Because if you mistreat people on your way up, it's going to be a long way down. Mm-hmm. So, this is in life. I'm not even talking about just her career. I'm talking about in life. For example, I know most, if not all of us, have siblings or have had siblings, whatever. How many times, and I know this happened to me a couple times, I'll be out joking around with my friends and I talk a little bit of trash about my brother. And then I get in the house, my mom comes in and smacks me across my face and says, "Why are you talking smack about your brother in public?" It's something that you're not supposed to do.
Yeah.
And she was in the animation family and she went out and she talked bad about the animation family. Good, bad, or indifferent. You know what I mean? There is a way, and for the record, what she's ultimately going to do, I'm a huge fan of. Much bigger fan of how she handled this situation, but I'm a big fan of her going independently. So with that being said, spoiler alert, I like where she's going. But up to now, it's kind of like this video when you watch it, it's almost like it comes off like a spoiled kid who didn't get her way, and so she's taking her ball and going home.
And make it so bad she did get her way though. I mean,
that was the ultimate end to this. That she was at, I think, Disney for like roughly 2 years, and that she saw the career growing, and they got to the point where they wanted to promote her, I believe, from revisionist to storyboard artist.
Yep.
And she came to the realization that this is not what I want to do, and she turned it down, and they were very confused, and I think they even countered, and she was like, "No, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore."
Yeah.
Which, that alone in itself, like, great. Like, that is amazing for you for realizing this is not what you want, and go do your own thing.
Right.
It's more this follow up thing of
I think she would have been bad if she. It would be different. I think we would be talking about it different. I think you might have heard it talk amongst your peers at work, Jack, differently if she didn't crap on everybody she worked with, because everybody has artists or freelancers. Whoever you always have a view of clients or their boss or executives, right? So that could have been a pass. Because we've seen this happen before with other artists, and they come out and it's a big hoopla online. But I think the mere fact that then she went in and doubled down on the fact that like interactions about her first day where she was wandering around Disney the first day and no one like kind of greeted her.
Yeah.
And they put her at her desk and she was there for like half a day without anybody saying anything to her. And then like it went on to different things and how cliquish it was and how people didn't really talk to her. And she endured this for, 5 years or so. And when it was time for her to get those promotions, she just said, I'm not doing it. So I thought that was interesting too, because if it was just like the higher ups are stupid, they're like asking for stupid changes and creative changes, they're not even in creative. So I decided not to take the job, decided not to take any of the things, and kind of left to go do my own thing. So I have full creative control. That's a very different narrative,
right?
Without shitting on anybody that was there.
Right.
Than where we are now, because we've seen that happen, and everybody probably would have praised her for it.
Right.
But then the people that work at Disney that maybe they feel like they're good people are going to get all lumped under this thing of we're cliquey here and we're toxic.
Right.
Which
imagine being the one person that does go up to her and say, because she does tell the story about how she was walking around trying to find her spot, and someone actually walked up and was like, "Hey, let me help you find your spot," or let me help you. You look lost. Let me help you. And then she turns around and does this. That one person, at least one person at Disney, is like, "What the hell did I do to you?"
Right. Yeah. They'll lump it into everybody. So I think that's why everybody's mad about it. But like, the rollout for her YouTube career is kind of like a crazy chess move, though, because like all this,
it's a good move,
could have been pre-planned. I'm going to go devil's advocate. All this could have been pre-planned. Never known if it's going to hit with Cartoon Brew how it did, but it did. Instantly, you got all type of subscribers on YouTube.
Right.
Instant monetization the first week. It's like the other. It's like the other girl on YouTube that blew up, who lives in a van, and who blew up to like 3 million subscribers in like 2 days. It's like a similar fashion. This never really happens. It's a unicorn.
Right.
Well, you don't know.
But yeah.
I mean, it could be one of those things that it was sort of a zero-sum game. Like, if nobody noticed it, then it did no harm. But if people noticed it, then it could launch a,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. If pooping all over Sketch Zone would have helped my YouTube channel blow up, you guys would have had poop all over you.
Yo, that's the second time tonight.
Yeah, you're real ready to throw us under the bus today. I don't know.
Me and Jack, we should make a video tomorrow morning.
We were fine until this asshole showed up.
Yeah, so like that's the other thing now, because then she doubled down again. And the next thing she did was she had a podcast with her significant other.
Yeah.
Now they have a podcast together where after you have the crazy viral video that goes, then you have the podcast video that explains the viral video that gives more detail. Is where we get all our intricate details with this. So that's like just 2 videos are getting amazing hits. And I think I said it to Carlos and Jack in our group chat this week, was like, all right, well, here's where she's really going to learn how to be a creative and like pressure, because now like you gotta keep that content up, because it's even more demoralizing to watch your subscriber base go down in a month because you can't keep up with the newfound fame if it is helping her out. I didn't look at her channel today. I meant to look at her channel before the show.
She went up quite a bit, because when I first went to her channel to watch this, I think she was getting close to 2,000, and now she has 3.62 thousand. So so she's
still not a lot.
No,
but the controversy launched her, doubled her subscriber base.
Easily did that.
It's gonna be a question if she has content to actually provide. I mean, Landon brings up a good point that there's always going to be someone above you. And I think honestly, it's less even the tell-all. I think tell-alls can be positive, and I think there have been some in the past that have got industry support. I think the biggest thing for me, and I think a lot of our coworkers, is like that it's exactly like Landon said. There's always something above you, and the things that she was complaining about were pretty much like standard expectation and just like standard across like all industries. Like I've never heard of a job where you don't have a boss or somebody to respond to, or like somebody who won't shake your hand just because they're a dick. Like it's just like, it's petty stuff. Yes, it's lame, but like it's pretty much just part of being in a workplace. And the extra weird part about it was, if you watch the 1 hour podcast, she goes into explain pretty in detail like her backstory and how she got hired and she worked at DreamWorks for a while and basically said she loved it there and it was great. So it's like it's weird for you to say I hate the animation industry just because your last job was terrible at Disney. Like there's a lot of stuff
why
that
don't you
just
just go
doesn't
back?
line up. There's a lot of stuff that just doesn't line up. That's kind of like, are you just complaining and you got sick of being told what to do? Or like,
Right.
I think at the end of the day, she's right. It's just not a good fit for her. She shouldn't be working at a studio. And so she's off on her own. And
Right.
but the thing, the thing is even on your own, as Patrick can tell you, you still have a boss. It might be your client. It might be your buyer. It might be, I mean, there's still people that you have to please and answer to.
Yeah, definitely. I think the difference is that when you're like I'm a freelance editorial advertising illustrator, and the people who I'm answering to, the job changes. So there's a finite amount of time that I have to deal with one client, and so even if a job is really difficult, I know that there's an end date. I know that I can get through this one, and then the next one may be rewarding or not. And so there's this constant change, which it suits me well. Again, not knowing the content beforehand, I'm more interested in what she's going to do with this platform that she's created. Because for me, I think it sounds like it's a lot about the fantasy of having a career in animation versus the reality. And I think for a lot of people that there's this idea that being an artist is this sort of magical field, that it's anointed, and there is a lot of magical things about it, but there's also reality to it. But it's a double-edged sword, because when you encounter the reality, people also have expectations of artists. When there's this idea that if you have this seemingly idyllic career, that there's no room for you to complain. I remember like a lot of times when I'm trying to explain to people what I do as an illustrator, if I get in an Uber and they ask what I do, I always just say like, oh, I draw pictures and people pay me money. And that sounds
right.
I don't have to go into like contracts and deadlines and, getting a project brief on a Friday and having it due on a Monday, that sort of thing.
Right.
So it would be interesting if this platform made a space for people responsibly to kind of talk about the reality of an art career, an animation career, and so that you can sort of shed light on it without being destructive about it. That's where I feel like this could be helpful for her or helpful for the industry.
Yeah.
Patrick, I want to, while you were talking, this one of my favorite sayings popped in my head. I always like to point out that no one wants to be the artist until the artist shows up. Does that make sense to you?
I think intuitively, but explain it to me a little bit more. I haven't heard this before.
This is kind of me complaining, right? That's my saying, right? I've walked into meetings where no one knows the difference between orange and blue. And then they hire me to do some drawings. I show up. All of a sudden, everyone wants to be like, well, that's not mother of pearl. Or, that fuchsia is just, or this happened to me in real life. That blue is not blue enough. When the artist shows up, all of a sudden everyone has an art degree. You know what I mean?
In my experience, a lot of people. One of the challenges of being a freelance illustrator is that everybody wants to kind of control the concept, and not everybody is good at that. There are some great art directors, and I think that the sort of the magic space is when there's a lot of trust between the artist and the art director, and so you together make something better than you probably could have done on your own. But sometimes I encounter art directors who want just a pencil, Like there's no room for you to put yourself into it. There's no room for your ideas. They have an idea that maybe you feel like you can improve on, but they're just kind of stuck on maybe a really cliche idea of something, and you could make it way more interesting. That's usually when I get frustrated.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And for me, I get a little frustrated with folks that they know that I draw cartoons and they see something like, yeah, I can talk about this one. This one was a while ago. Long story short, they wanted me to draw the wife of Bob's Burgers doing a twerk because they wanted to put it on a t-shirt. And I said, okay, I'll draw something like that, but I'm not going to copy that. And then, so then they're like, all right, yeah, fine. We just need something close. And I would draw, and then I'd show them, and they said, yeah, that's good. That's good. Can you change this? And they kept changing it until I finally said, I'm not changing it because you want me to copy it. And I'm not going to pay whatever penalties because you don't want to pay royalties to them. Right.
Yeah, and I feel like that is just an ethical decision.
Right.
Yeah.
And good on you.
Yeah. And that's just it. Like, I'm not out here trying to steal someone else's stuff. I'm just not. And if you want me to, I'm not your guy. I'm just not. And I guess that's kind of a similar stance to this girl. She's like, it's not for me. So she moved on. But let me ask you, Patrick, good question, Landon. Landon is asking, how did Patrick get his first freelance job, and what were they?
Okay. I got my first freelance job while I was still in school. And
Uh-oh. What happened?
What's wrong?
Charlie dropped out and
I
ruined the
think my
entire
connection
layout.
might be a little.
I didn't drop out. I'm here.
Oh, okay.
I think it's still okay.
Okay. Yeah. No, we're
Yeah.
good.
That's fine.
I just got really scared about graduating and not having anything lined up. And I knew I wanted to do freelance. And so I just emailed every single blog at the time. This was 2010. And just sort of unabashedly promoted myself, was like, hey, here's my work. If you find it interesting, please. And so the first job I got actually was for the New York Times Magazine. Tiny little thing, like little 1-inch illustrations for 3 weeks in a row. And then from there, a few faculty members who were art directors kind of threw me some work, and then it just sort of daisy chained from there.
So when you said you got a gig at the New York Times Magazine?
Magazine, yeah. So it was
how did you actually get that deal for that?
They saw my work on a blog and
they
sent me an email.
So they contacted you.
Yeah. But I again, there was a lot of, I made a list of blogs because I would spend about, a half an hour at the beginning of the day just going through all the blogs, making a list, and then I would email 10 a day. And then when I ran out of blogs, just look for more to email.
Mm-hmm.
Student loans are a scary thing.
Hell yeah, they are.
Yeah.
A good
You want to
motivator.
talk about a motivator?
Yeah, exactly.
So right out of college, you started doing freelance,
Yeah.
and you've been doing freelance your entire career.
Well, yes. There just recently, the last 3 years, I worked for a studio that made home goods, lifestyle things for kids called Kid Made Modern. And I did that remotely. They're in New York. I have my studio here in LA, but they allowed me to do freelance also on the side. So I moonlit the freelance to sort of keep the continuity, and now I'm back to 100% freelance.
Oh, nice. Did you say what school you went to?
I went to Art Center in Pasadena.
Oh, cool. Wow. And you're still in LA. Like you you just hit the ground running. You're
I was born here. I had no intention of leaving.
that makes sense. And so when you got the job with what New York Times Magazine, were they doing remote work back then?
Yeah, yeah. It was all online. And then it just happened to be like a really nice coincidence of things. You know, the year that I graduated in 2010, Icon, the illustration conference, happened to be in Pasadena. So I volunteered to work at the bookstore there and just handed out as much stuff as I could to everyone.
That's
Went
the
to
move.
every party that I could, every event, listened to every keynote speaker I could, tried to make conversation. And then I had actually, anyways, I had done a children's book right out of school too, and just sort of like pitched that into, it was the same publisher that Todd Oldham had done the Charlie Harper and the Alexander Gerard book out of. And so he happened to be at the conference, and the publisher said, "Oh, you guys should meet." And Todd looked at my portfolio and said, "Oh, you should come to New York and we should do something together." And I went home that night and bought a ticket to New York. And then when I saw him the next day at the conference, was like, "Oh, I'm going to be there next month. Is it okay if I stop by?" I just hustled.
No, those are really important lessons because there's some students that I've talked to that when you say hustle, they don't think about going to these conferences and not sponsoring. What is it? Volunteering at these conferences, and this is a perfect example of how beneficial it actually can be. You know, you can have all the hustle in the world. If you're hustling in the incorrect way, like you're just wasting energy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of them. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
Well, I think the word hustle sounds a little weird. The thing is, I gave a talk, I think, at Pierce College where it's like a Q&A, and somebody asked, how do I network without
feeling dirty?
Yeah, exactly. And like, I kind of went into it a little bit, and the short answer I had was, well, don't be an asshole. Like the point is, basically, I'm excited about illustrating, and I wasn't trying to make jobs. I was trying to make friends. Like these are people that I admired their work. These are people I wanted to know. I wanted to be around because they interested me. Everything about it was totally exciting. Yeah. And it was not opportunistic, although I did have to make money. So,
right.
But I just,
And that's one of the things. Oh, thank you. Is that you, Jack?
Yeah.
That's one of the things that that people misunderstand when you are when you're at, say, a conference or a networking event. Everyone knows what you're there for, so it shouldn't feel dirty anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, you have unlimited possibilities of like you said, making friends, but you also have an unlimited possibilities to ruin it. Like if you're not trying to be cool, trying to make friends, those are the bonds that last longer than, hey, let me use you for my next job move.
Yeah, or you know what? I think all you have to do is be authentic, because there are certain illustrators that I know that are friends of mine that I like, who are very clear that, like, I'll do the job. It's not as long as you don't hide your motivations.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't think that there's anything wrong with wanting, with going somewhere with the expectation, going to a meeting or going, somebody makes an introduction being like, "Oh, I think you guys can work together," or things like that, and it being just on the surface. I think it gets weird when you try to hide your intentions.
Yeah,
That makes
and
sense.
I think that's what a lot of students and like newcomers have problems with when they're at these different events, because like it's really easy to go and volunteer and be a student worker. There's bigger places like SIGGRAPH and stuff like that have really good student working programs and stuff like that, so you can be at the show and meet all these different people. Or GDC has the same thing for if you're going into game development. But like, I think the biggest thing that I tell students is like or just even young artists is don't be weird. Like that's my like one of my things in some of the
Okay, hang on.
That is so much easier said than done.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I've caught myself telling that to people a couple times too, and I actually was talking to a person today who's moving on to a different show, and she wanted to pick my brain, and I actually said something similar. Mm-hmm. Can we explain that? Like, what is like the weird behavior that turns folks off? Like,
cool.
Yeah.
So I'll go and then
brush your teeth.
Jump in. Yeah. Obvious hygiene things, but like, when I tell people don't be weird, because I had to learn this, in school. When I was still in school, I was the guy going to all the different meetups, just a freshman in college, and like, because I wanted to be around the different people to learn from them. But one of the things I had to figure out is like conversational, like networking, like coming at people in a normal way. And what I mean by that is like, you could go to one of these big, huge events, like, or big, huge conferences, and you could see one of the guys, like if I saw somebody I knew, like a character artist like Raphael Grassetti or somebody big, and I wanted to go introduce myself and tell him, he inspired me, or do all these things. It's kind of like when you meet a celebrity. You can meet a celebrity in a cool way where it's like, hey, how's it going? My name is this such and such, blah blah blah, and try to make small talk, or you can stalk them in the corner and watch them talk to 15 different people first before you even say anything. And that's an exaggerated way, but
and
even
do
if
not
you're
wait for them to go to the bathroom. Please don't do that.
Right. And even if you're like at the same talk, say you're at a talk and everybody's about, storyboarding or whatever, and you see that storyboard artist that you know of. Maybe they're not like super famous, but you know of him because he works at Disney, or he works at DreamWorks, or he works at insert studio here. People pick up on things like when they feel like they're being stared at or stuff like that. Like, that's the type of things that students do all the time. Or the one other classic one is like making conversation and then being the person that's hovering, around the conversation without. And like, and we laugh at these things, but like, I feel like we should write a book, because like I see it every single time, even at the local meetups and stuff that I go to now. Like, you have the hoverer, like they don't say anything, they're just there. They laugh at a joke or something like that, and it sounds like I'm trying to be funny, but I'm not, because it's like happens even when I go like to comic book conventions and stuff like that. You have to be able to be like, what is normal conversation if you met this person for the first time? You already have something in common with them. It could be, it's art, right? That's a universal thing, right? But can you open the conversation with something other than where you work, or something like that, so that you get on a common ground? And feel free for anybody else to chime in with this, but like, that's my biggest thing. Like 9 times out of 10, when I'm meeting somebody new, or I'm meeting somebody that like I really want to talk to, I figure out something else to talk about first, and casually in conversation, I'll say, "Oh yeah, where do you work?" And then like the conversation going, and get the person to talk about themselves more than me asking them questions like an interviewer.
Right.
It normally goes 100%, better than you like firing off a bunch of questions at them, and them feeling like they're on the spot, I mean,
yeah. No, I agree with you. I also think it depends on where you're at. I think you have to cut a little bit of slack for people who are first starting out.
For sure.
Because it takes a while to get comfortable. It's a small world, and you're going to run into these people, and the first time you do, it's really kind of nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
I think the best thing is, and I've done this, and I've done this for people, is if somebody knows them, they can make an introduction, and it
That's
makes
really
it
good.
so much easier. And then you just have a conversation that is completely separate than, I think that's the smoothest and easiest way.
You're right. You're totally right with that. Having someone introduce you has been great. Like, I think when me and Carlos was at SIGGRAPH years ago, when we first started Sketch Zone, I think who was it? Our good friend, what's his name? Was at the booth.
Good friend, huh?
I can't remember his name right now.
I'm like, we made a lot of friends that weekend.
Steve
Tarkowski.
Tarkowski. Like, he is like a master at like the introduction. Like, because like I feel like his personality like draws people into conversations.
Yeah.
So we met him for the first time.
Friendly. Yeah.
And for me, it was the first time. I don't know if Carlos and him talked over like. Nope. Like, okay, cool. So he saw us in the middle of his like presentation at one of the booths. He had a good about 50 to 70 people, around, like, because he was giving a presentation. Stopped his presentation and like shouted us out and like
he legit said, "Shout out Sketch Zone. Sketch Zone's in the house." So I was looking around like, what?
Those guys right there. And then afterwards, like, talked, and we were talking and like introducing ourselves for the first time, even though we kind of, like never met him in person. But then in that one introduction, an initial conversation with him, he brought 3 or 4 other people in. Oh yeah, you guys should talk to these guys. Yeah. And we're like, oh okay, and it made that situation a lot easier. And that's just us. We're gonna stand on the side, watch his presentation quietly in the back, and then try to say hi to him after he's done, because we thought he was really busy. But like, so having that friend that can introduce you, or is really, really awesome too. And helps out that. Yeah. And I know young people are going to be a little awkward in the beginning, but like some of them don't. Some of them just need to be told, like, hey, just bring it down a notch. Everybody's human. You're going to see them.
Right.
And like, just kind of approach them as a fellow artist, with the same interests,
And please don't try to be smarter than people.
That too.
That's a turn off.
I like how Carlos ones are like straight to the point, but that happens too all the time, where they try to like talk to you like they have the same amount of experience you have. Like, oh yeah, I've used that too. And like they might say something wrong, a misstep. You're like, yeah, students do this a lot. Don't oversell yourself or your knowledge that you have. Just be normal.
Be humble. Be chill. Like, relax, dude.
Yeah. So those are great ways of like, communicating and networking without feeling like you're too pushy or over, because you don't want to be like the car salesman like vibe, like, hey, I can do this drawing for you. Get me in. You don't want that.
So we've been flipping through Patrick's work here, and everything is consistent yet different.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cool stuff. What is your approach? Do you approach every project the same way, Patrick?
No. I mean, I would say I have a handful of approaches. So it depends on the project, and it also depends on the art director. I think one of my favorite things about illustrating, aside from design, art, color, all of that, is the fact that illustration is by its nature collaborative. It's this differentiates it from, I wouldn't say all fine art, but it's a conversation, or it's a collaboration between at least a few people, if not between you and it's for an audience of some sort. And so it really depends on the needs of the client that sort of dictates how I'm going to approach the project.
Mm-hmm.
So there's certain standard things. I mean, you can expect, that you're going to do, 3 to 5 sketches, a number of roughs. This is all worked out in the contracts. But how those are done, or how I generate my ideas, really depends on, am I illustrating an article, or am I advertising for a product, or is it some sort of nonprofit work? And then sometimes it just some projects, I know right away what I'm going to do. So I start, in a sketchbook, drawing pictures. Sometimes I need, I do a lot of work for business magazines, which I think is really strange because my work is really bright and colorful, optimistic, it seems. And it's exactly that sort of tension, I think, that makes it good for business magazines, because the material can sometimes be pretty dry. And so you need a little bit of sugar.
Else to,
And so
the medicine go down.
Yeah. So in those cases, I will start usually with writing. I'll read the article. I'll make word trees. I'll start to make random associations to sort of develop a metaphor. So yeah, I guess the really long explanation for
it's great.
Depends.
Is the art director giving you a lot of direction in terms of because I've always wondered this about the business magazines or these illustrations for these different articles, because a couple of them, or like when you do a cover for business magazine that kind of goes along with the article. Is there like a predetermined layout or a predetermined flow to the how they want the article to read, and that's where you have to come up with the filler images to go on those pages? How does that process work?
Again, it depends. I like to have the layout. So if the layout's available, because typically they'll tell you the dimensions, and we're used to things being caught in a rectangle. So there'll be it's so many inches by so many inches or so many centimeters, depending on who you're working for.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll say well, can I see the layout? Because there's all these little places to sort of squeeze things in.
Right. I love how they do that.
Activate the type and know where the headlines are going. And again, we were talking before, a lot of it's relationships. If you have a really good time working with an art director, chances are you're going to work with them again. And as these relationships build, you get a little bit more freedom to do more and more and ask for more and more, because it's about trust.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah. Because a lot of times I see those multi-spanned, if it's a 2-pager, I was always fascinated in how it just totally wraps around, and then the words are kind of wrapping around the artwork, they kind of, so I always want to know that process. So that's interesting. Cool.
Yeah. And usually when it's something like that, you're working with an art director and then also the graphic designer. Mm-hmm. So the team gets a little bit bigger, that little collaboration.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you're not doing the page layout. You're just doing the illustration.
Yes, that is correct.
And when you have to do a cover, is that do you know going in that you're doing the cover also and then work, or is that they keep that separate?
I'm going to change your wording. When you get to do a cover.
Yeah, when you get to do a cover. Okay, yes.
When
few and far between, right?
Well, it depends. A few and far between. There's sometimes where just recently for Strategy and Business Magazine, who I really, really like to work for, really, really great art director, had hired me to do the feature illustration. So the illustration that pretty much, for the cover story, but on the interior. And when I got to maybe the rough stage, they went to the editor and everything, and they're like, "Okay, this is now the cover." Now we need.
It happened like that.
So that was pretty awesome.
Okay, cool. That's awesome.
What do your sketches look like?
They are. Oh, man, I wish I had a sketchbook right next to me. I usually draw really directly. I have a really direct way of drawing, and I usually use a felt ink pen.
Okay.
They're really heavy-handed, and they translate the idea.
Oh.
Because you have a very Illustrator style, like Adobe Illustrator.
Yes.
Is that your weapon of choice?
I mean, I do paint also. It
looks the same.
Yeah, those are paintings. The truth is, my background was actually pretty much in printmaking. When I first started school, I hated using a computer. I really, really hated it. I had this sort of, I don't know, irrational prejudice against digital work. And again, this was, back in 2007, and also I was ignorant. And so I would do everything by hand. And then when I started taking printmaking and I started silk screening, where everything was super graphic, it was either a color or it wasn't. And it sort of changed the way that I thought about it. And I had the skill. I knew how to use all the Adobe programs. And once I let go of that prejudice, it just opened up a world of like what I could do with it. And then, there are certain clients that I do things. I still do gallery shows with paintings and things like that. But doing things digitally is just so more conducive to the process of making revisions, working with the layout, making it easier for everybody involved, including the designers. And I like the way it looks. It suits the way that I think.
I know some folks that'll go right into Illustrator. They don't even give their ideas time to breathe. Like, just go sit somewhere in a sketchbook.
Occasionally I do that. So.
Is there sometimes where you do where that is your approach?
Yeah, there are some hangups to it though, because of the clean nature of vector illustration. Sometimes art directors don't understand that what you're giving them is a sketch. And they're like, why doesn't this look like the rest of your work? And I'm like, because I spent, only like 3 hours on it. I need, this
Direction,
is this is roughly the color and roughly the composition, and this is the idea, but it's going to be way more detailed. Trust me.
Yeah.
So in that case, I find it, if it's a new client that I haven't worked with, I'll usually do a pencil sketch.
Okay.
And then they understand, they can see the progression.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, we've had to do, even at work when we're giving stuff to clients in our design desk, we've been starting to do more sketching. The new art director's but it's been like, pushing the designers to get more sketching in the presentation decks, to get out of that like notion of like this is final, and they hold on to the style frame too much without knowing that this is just the rough idea. We want to get some more direction and then move forward. So I love that you like have to do that sometimes, where you just have to say, okay, cool, I'm going to have to sketch this so that he knows it's just a sketch and not get too attached to the what it is so far,
Yeah, exactly. And then sometimes I just like sketching.
Yeah.
And there's been times where I handed in a sketch and they said, yeah, we love it. And I'm like,
oh yeah.
What do you mean? Like, this is your logo. This is a sketch of the logo I'm about to finish for you. They're like, no. Don't change a thing.
We like it all sketchy.
Perfect.
Well, but I've had the opposite problem where I hand in a sketch and they're like, well, but it's not going to look like all sketchy, right? It's going to have like color or like shape.
Oh no, really?
Yeah. I've had.
It's like, how do you deal with a client that just doesn't get it at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, okay. I'm gonna think about how much I can
Hey, and for the record, this is why that girl quit Disney.
Right.
So I have really good reps. So I've got really good reps that rep my work, that sort of manage the projects that I'm on. So the nice thing about having reps, and it's not for everyone, is that I can still be the good guy. I can still be excited about a project and go, and then I just write my agents and say like, hey, we're doing one more round of revisions than we're supposed to, and then my agent intervenes and says like, hey, Patrick's doing round 4 and we agreed on 3. We need another this much money.
Change order.
And I'm the one who when they ask for the next round, I'm like, sure, whatever you want. So it's nice to have to diffuse the power.
That is nice. Yeah. Huh.
So they're your good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
Yeah, most of the time it's usually
They're just
good
back.
cop, good cop.
Right.
It's really rare that I mean, I've maybe had, in 10 years, I can think of like 3 nightmare projects. But I finished them all.
Mm-hmm.
So how long have you had a rep?
Thank you, Jack. You got that was my question.
So
Yeah.
I got really lucky. I got a rep as I was graduating.
Whoa.
So
Oh wow.
Is that rare?
it is,
Yes.
and so as I was graduating, I had a giant wall that I got of the gallery at the school, and the department chair, her reps came for a meeting with her, and they happened to see the wall that I did, and then she was really, really kind, and basically gave me a recommendation to them.
Mm.
So that being said, it still took, a few years to really, feel comfortable in freelance.
Okay.
Mm.
With reps, because I don't know much about this side of the industry with having reps, because I know even on the digital side and stuff like that, you can still have reps, and maybe Jack, about this too. So I would like to learn about this tonight. So what is that process like? Is there, let's see, how can I put this? Is there a level at which you can get a rep that you should get one? Because it seemed like you had a special case scenario. Because are you paying that rep? Are you paying it regardless of if they're bringing you work or not? And if so, could that become very expensive? Like when should an artist look for that? Is there a certain point you would say?
I think it's unique to each illustrator or each artist. Reps standard is 30%, which is a really, really high commission for the arts in general. But for me, it was really great having it in the beginning because I didn't understand contracts and I didn't understand pricing. Even if you have the pricing guidelines, the handbook, the margin of error is so huge. It will be like, oh, for this job, ask 5,000 to 20,000, and you're like, well, where does that?
20,000 done.
Yeah, got it.
Asked for money that I was not comfortable asking for,
Right.
and made it well worth it. They also handle billing, invoicing, collecting. All your 1099s get all into one 1099. It streamlined the process so that I could just make work, and that made me really happy.
Right. And not to mention, and I'm sorry for cutting you off, Charlie, but not to mention, the folks that you have representing you, they're going to make sure that you get top dollar, because the more you get paid, the more they get paid. Right?
Yeah, it's definitely incentivized for them. But also, luckily, I'm with a tiny boutique. It's just 2 women running this agency. They've done it, 20, 30 years now. That it becomes more like a family. Like I really do consider them friends at this point, and it doesn't feel like we're all in it to
win. Yeah.
To win. Yeah, exactly.
So now that you're like fairly established and you've had an agent or a rep, I don't know what the term is, for a while.
Babysitter.
How much babysitter? How much of it is like do you still actively start your own gigs and then they handle the contracts and all that? Are they exclusively bringing you stuff, or like how's like what's the day-to-day gig lineup procedure?
Okay, well, everything is by contract. So you can have a unique contract with your rep. So if you get a contract, look over it and make sure it's something that you're comfortable with. It doesn't have to be standard. You can tailor it to you. Like, for instance, I realized early on, because I had a really good business teacher at school, that editorial work doesn't have a huge margin. Like, they have pretty much the price that they're going to pay. They have standard, like, this is how much we give for a cover. This is how much we give for a quarter page, a double page spread.
Budget, yeah.
So there's no need for someone to go in there and negotiate something higher for me. And those things are, because of the turnaround, are pretty standardized. So I crossed out everything that had to do with editorial. And so everything I do editorial is mine. I seek out that work. Unless it specifically comes from my agent, because, if it comes through them, but if somebody reaches out to me because they know of my work and it's editorial, then I can do that. If it's ad, that's another story.
So there's certain genres that you could take on yourself, or that you only let your rep handle.
Yeah, and always be up.
And that's
up.
in the contract.
So if it's a gray zone, I call my reps and say, hey, this thing came in. Where does this lie in our contract? Like, it's like you said, like the story we were talking about before. You don't want to make enemies. You want to, like, you make friends. And, like, my relationship with my reps is more important to me than, one job.
Makes sense.
Right. Yeah. And it also, I mean, we keep referencing the original conversation of tonight. I've seen it. I'm even guilty of this. Sometimes I get away with some stuff just because people think I'm friendly. I mean, and generally speaking, I really am. 99% of the time, I do try to give people the benefit of the doubt. I try to be helpful and all that stuff. And because people know me, I've been in situations where they say, I know you're struggling a little bit. Here's a little lecture on the side, right? Again, the common thread through everything that we're talking about is, if you're cool and you're professional and you're really good at what you do, it all works out. People want to work with people who are helpful, happy, friendly, right?
Yeah. And also people who like their own work. I mean, I think that's really important. And I think
that's such a good point.
Is when it comes back to when we were talking about networking and things like that, if you genuinely believe, if you love your work and you feel like it's good, not that it's perfect and you don't have room to grow. I mean, you mentioned that my work is constantly changing. It's because I'm curious and I get bored doing the same thing over and over again. But if you feel like you have something to offer, then it doesn't seem like you're a jerk offering it to someone. You have something that they want. You feel like you're competent at it and that they could benefit. You have to be your biggest fan.
Right.
It's really hard because I get imposter syndrome all the time.
Oh, that's just one of the things that creative folks have to deal with, right?
All the time, yeah.
But like my clients, they call me out on this now, but like if I see something cool, what I'll do is I'll create. For example, I was doing these cartoon karaoke things, and then I showed it to one of my clients, and I was like, look, this is how I can see this working with your social media push. And they bought the idea.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So don't be afraid. Like, if you have that cool relationship with some of your clients and you see something new that's coming out, leverage it. Like, reach out to them and say, I think this would work beautifully. Because what they see is someone who is invested in them as well.
Yeah. And in your work and in the integrity of your work, I think one of the thing I wish I knew when I was first starting out is how to push back politely or, through the proper channels with the client instead of keeping quiet. If you have an idea, that's half the job is your ideas. It's not just drawing. And so you have to be able to say, in a very diplomatic way, that's a great idea. What about this as well? Or sometimes if I've really had a good idea and they seem insistent, you just double the work. You do their idea, and then you say, here's another idea. And like sometimes our directors just have to see it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And that, I mean, worst case scenario when you do that, like you're just so, you're just proving your stance, right? Either it's going to work or it's not, right? So when you pitch the client on like what Patrick was talking about, do the second version, the one that you think is better, and I'm using the air quotes completely wrong, and I know, but
Yeah, you're kind of opposite there.
Yeah. Yeah.
This one's better.
this is better. But I mean, if you think it's better, then go ahead and do it, and then show them and let them make the decision, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Again, it's
There's
only
some
going to show
time
that you're
for that,
invested
but
in their company too, and that's what they're looking for.
Yeah, they just want that.
I think that there's, at least for me, as an artist, nothing disappoints me more than finishing a project and knowing it could have been better. Like,
Yeah.
it's always, I mean, there is degrees of that. But if you feel like it could have been way better if you had said something or like, you guys relate? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, yeah.
No,
yeah.
completely.
So basically, my life.
Come on. I just know if I would have made that other
Brutal.
decision. No, but
She
yeah.
was just twerking more.
Hard working.
We would be in a way better spot.
You know what this spot needs is
No. So how long did that take you to get the courage up then?
I don't know. It was so gradual.
It's gradual.
You know, I think you sort of grow into your skin as an artist.
Mhm.
I think a lot of times, and I'm not just. I also have taught at Art Center, so I see this in students. I'm not just. Sometimes students' talent is beyond their ability to own it. And so those things have to catch up with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the most important things, no matter how well you draw, no matter how good your color sense is your point of view. And I think your point of view you develop.
Uh-oh. Come back to us.
Like life story to bring to it.
Oh, we missed that last bit, and that sounded important.
Oh, sorry. Where
cut
did
out.
you miss it?
Your point of view.
Oh, the point of view, I think, comes from having a life outside of art. I think a lot of people who make art their only focus, their only interest, their only idea, really miss an opportunity to gather things from the world around them that are maybe, read a book every once in a while. I mean, I'm talking about the visual arts or illustration or animation or whatever particular field you're in. Sometimes you can get so close to it, so overwhelmed with it that you forget, to read a book or go on a vacation or, I don't know, talk to
live. Yeah.
live.
Yeah.
And the main thing is have an opinion. Like, have an opinion, have a point of view.
Right.
And I think that's when artists, students, beginning artists get confident in their point of view. That's when their ability to own their talent catches up with the talent that they have.
Ooh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
What do you
nugget
find?
right there.
What do you find more dangerous? Someone with a lot of talent that doesn't realize it, or someone with not as much talent that thinks that they do?
I think somebody with a lot of talent that doesn't realize that it's more sad than me. I feel like it's more a wasted opportunity. You can't give somebody confidence. You can't. So I actually think sometimes it's great when someone doesn't have a lot of talent but has a point of view, some interesting things happen there. It can be real annoying if it doesn't.
Nice.
The wild
I
card
just-
character.
I just
I
like
had
your
a-
point of view.
I had a joke, but I don't know if it
Not
would have
your
gone.
talent.
I was
Really
going to
like your
say
point of
some
view.
people call it modern art.
Oh, shots fired.
It's a good thing I didn't say that.
Well, you didn't. You didn't say
I didn't say it.
it.
He did not say it.
Interesting.
Cool.
What's your favorite what's the favorite project that you've worked on? And I know that's a completely weird question, but
Could you answer it, please?
'cause I've seen the one that pays up front.
Geez. Well, right now, I wouldn't necessarily call this a project, but we've had all this talk about art directors and the compromises you make and all of these things. Some friends of mine, Ellen Surrey, Larice Flora, the great illustrators, we all went to Art Center. We were kind of talking about making art without an art director, like being our own art director, or just making art without limits. And so we formed this collective called Clover Scout, and that's sort of the project that I'm most excited about. We just make things. We have meetings. We have sketch parties.
That's cool.
We have a little bank account where we pool the money we make from it, and then we leverage it into new products. We're making a set of like highball glasses now with like gold leafing, and
oh wow,
Ellen made this pen as part of Clover Scout. That's what I'm excited about right now.
That's awesome.
That's yeah.
So can you define that a little better? Like when you say without an art director, you're sort of saying arts without limits. Is it?
Well, we've kind of become our own art director, which is funny. By committee, sort of, or just by agreement, we decide on the projects that we're working on and things like that. I know design by committee is I cringe when I
was like, yeah.
But when you're friends, yeah. So these are some things that we make at Clover Scout. So that top row, we each did a print for the Bob Baker Marionette Theater. We're actually working on another set of those prints right now. Just below are a set of just greeting cards that we made. We just had this loose idea of like spring. We decided on a color palette together to kind of hold the set together, and then we just kind of pitch projects that we want to make.
These are so cool.
So you guys get around together and you pitch a project like, hey, what about this for a set of birthday cards? And then if you all okay it, you design them and then it goes to the store. Basically, is kind of the.
Yeah. It started out. It was actually kind of funny. There was this like tabling event here in LA called Unique LA. That was sort of the impetus for it, because we realized that we all kind of wanted to do it and sell things, but we thought like, oh, if we call ourselves something as a group, then we pay a third of the price for one table. and then so it started as sort of tabling, and then it kind of grew. We painted a mural. We've a few murals. We've had a couple of group shows. We have Gallery Nucleus in Portland this July. We're doing, I think, 45 paintings between the three of us for sort of a solo show for the group. We did a show at Cartoon Network, a gallery show at their space. We just do what's fun.
Do what's fun. Yeah.
These pens are hilarious. I love them.
Thanks.
I like the Outlaw Bear.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of it.
That was Larice. It's pretty great, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really good.
We had a fourth member. We were called Clover Scout because there were four of us, so we would have been like a four-leaf clover. Alexander Vidal was our fourth member, but he ended up getting so much client work during a time that, you know, we're all still really great friends, but he just couldn't continue on with the project. So there's a lot of his work in this also.
Is their approach to designing pins much different than stickers or even ads?
Yes. The material demands, like we've had a couple, or at least I've had a couple of fails designing pins. Oh, here the LA Farmers Market commissioned us to make them a pin.
That's cool.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah, you just have it's just a matter of scale. That was our mural that we painted.
The mural.
Speaking of scale, you go from a pin to a
mural.
To a wall. Yeah.
Yeah, that.
How long did the mural take?
About a month, because we were working on it sort of in the evening after the coffee shop closed. We had like a target date for when they were having an event. Yeah, I think it was about a month.
Wow.
That stucco was so hard to paint on.
I was gonna ask you, how hard was it to get that stucco
You know,
totally
you
covered?
And how many
Most
times
of
did
our
you wrap your
painting was
knuckles?
like jabbing. We were just like
Well, how did you do straight lines?
You stand
like,
far away from it.
Yes.
I'm always fascinated with mural stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Jack, did you paint a mural?
I never actually did. I had two that were commissioned, and then neither one of them went through.
Oh,
Yeah.
I couldn't remember if you actually went through. Yeah.
These are so cool. And are those matching pillows over there? Dude, Patrick,
Yeah.
you're a bad, bad man.
Yo, you show Carlos some pillows and
That's it. I'm ready for nap time. I'm like, damn. I'm going to Patrick's house to take a nap in them fluffy pillows.
Yeah, we need to update this section.
It seems as if you have some motion in there. Are you getting into motion graphics?
Yeah, so I'm just getting into motion. Again, a client, 2 months ago, reached out and said, would you design style frames? Which I've done. That was one of the things that I started doing right out of school, was doing style frames for motion work. And then just a few months ago, a client asked, if you could do this thing for our New Year's thing, just design these frames, we'll give you X and X amount of money. But if you can animate it, we'll give you twice as much. And I was like, oh, I know how to
animate. You guys see Patrick like this.
What kind of a setup is that?
It's moving.
So I mean, luckily I have a really, really talented cousin who has his own motion studio. So, I call him up and I'm like, Paul, how do I do this or whatever? But I muscled my way through, and now
nice.
I can do pretty rudimentary motion stuff.
Sure.
But it's another thing. I'm curious about it, and so I'm experimenting.
And what's cool is your style. Number one is hot. Two, it lends itself so well to the motion that we see in your portfolio. It's just really neat to see it blending from just illustration to actual motion graphics. Like,
I will say one of the best things that came from me starting to learn how to do motion work is I realized what a problem I made. I always work on like one layer. And so when I had to animate things myself, I was like, oh crap.
Your cousin is yelling at you, like, will you stop?
Like, well, here we go.
So now I think the motion studios I work for from here on out are going to be so much happier with the files that they get.
Yeah.
Are you now that you're using multiple layers, do you name your layers appropriately?
Probably
Layer 25.
Yeah. Layer
no, no, no,
127.
Yeah.
Oh no. When I'm doing it, when I'm doing my illustration, still work on one layer. If I'm doing just an illustration, no, I like it that way because I'm very good at grouping things. Let's just say that, so that I can.
That's a form of layering.
It is.
Huh.
So that's why I think they haven't complained as much, because they can literally just click on one thing, grab it, and put it wherever they want. But it's faster with the hotkeys for me to like move a tree back and move it forward if it's just an object or a group.
Right. That makes a lot of
But
sense.
yes, if I'm doing it for myself, I do name them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if there's like a naming convention that I don't know about, but I'll be like eyeball, or like left eyeball, right eyeball,
That counts.
Yeah, that counts.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what's funny is especially when I was doing 3D, I had a coworker. We were building like vehicles and stuff, and and he would have like, third carburetor left side, this thing, all these, and I'm like,
you're like, what the hell's that?
engine thing 1.
Engine thing 1.
That's funny.
Actually, that's funny, because I primarily work with like foreign studios, and one of them's an Indian studio, and we would get the most hilariously named objects. It'd be like squiggle line 6 or something. It's like curly fabric. It's like, come on, guys.
Curly fabric.
It's like first grade English naming convention. I love it.
That's funny.
Curly fabric.
Yeah, I've worked with when I was doing multimedia in Hollywood, I would get Photoshop files from the artists, the initial designers, and then they would give me these Photoshop files with like 200, 300 layers, and they're literally labeled layer 157.
Yeah. No.
And it's, I mean, and then like you can do, command click, and it'll automatically take you to that layer. But not if you have like some texture on top. That texture on top
takes you to the texture.
You're going to continue to click the texture.
Yeah.
And that texture is like, layer 480.
Now you're away from where you need to be.
Yeah.
I'm working on a packaging project right now where I have to put photography into the illustration, like soldiers, they call it. And when you place an object, it has, it may look like this big in the screen, but it actually has a box around it this big. And that is really annoying to me. I do this trick where I always like throw something all the way to the back and then group it with the thing that I want, and then it pulls it right up behind, then ungroup it.
Nice.
That's a pro tip right there. Or how about those guys that they'll have when you're doing textures in Illustrator, you have like all these little vector shapes and stuff, but you have thousands of them, and then you go to click on something and it takes about 30 seconds for Illustrator to figure out what you clicked on. And
So I used to be a purist when I started using Illustrator, where everything was a closed shape, where I never used clipping masks. I never used anything. Everything I would just use Pathfinder, and I would just cut everything off, So the shape was the shape was the shape was the shape.
Yeah.
Now,
now you're just like
you're getting
that
lazy
doesn't make
in your old age.
Yeah, you can tell he's getting to be an old vet. You're like, whatever, just
I know
get
how
out the
this
door.
everything is.
Just get it done.
Get it done.
Because I mean, and those are the little things that people don't generally appreciate. You know, like you're gonna go through and clean all that stuff up, and all they're gonna do is grab that group and paste it over there.
They're gonna
yeah.
they're gonna hit copy and paste it into an email. It's gonna get down-resed, and they're like, "It's good, huh? Looks great."
Don't change a thing.
Not a thing. That's funny. So, where do you see your career going, or where would you like your career to go?
Wow.
And you might be in your happy space now.
No, I am happy right now, but I mean, honestly, into home goods right now. I taught in surface design a bit after working for Todd at the studio doing kid stuff. I want to do some things more along the lines of what we're doing at Clover Scout. I love textiles. I love designing repeat patterns. I don't know, make a cool vase. I mean, the stupid thing is, in like a magic world, I'd like to have a studio with a storefront where whatever I made just goes out, and then it either gets accepted or it doesn't get accepted. Like that.
We're
to me,
twins. We're so twinning in a hard way right now.
well, and I have two friends who are doing it, and it's like actually working out. And I mean, but they're superstar. Like I need to catch up to that like sort of level, but I know it can be done.
Give them a shout out. Who are they?
Lisa Condon and Tim Biscup both have spaces where they create and sell and interact with the public through events. Lisa's in Portland, Tim's here in LA.
Nice.
They're both incredible. Yeah.
Shout out to
That
them.
is what I would
cool.
like.
I mean, Jack and I came up to visit Sonoma before I moved up here. And we got to the square, and I was like, holy crap, like the Sonoma Square would be perfect for that thing, like to have a studio with a store attached to it. Like, wow. And they embrace the art community up here and alcoholism. They
It's a wild statement, Carl.
Am I lying?
I like how we just
No,
crashed
yeah.
it with that.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Does it encourage people to buy more?
Booze? All the time. All the time.
See, there you go. It's a good.
If
pairing.
nothing else, more booze.
You know what pairs with this great bottle of wine, this $3,000 print I
This
just
fantastic pillow.
Still wet.
Oh yes.
Jimmy
We need a
says
whole
it's getting
row
late
of those
for me
shops.
now, so it was nice
Right.
being here. Have a good night, Jimmy. And thanks. Jimmy's a good dude. He checks us out as much as he can, and he's always commenting on my coconut justice stuff too. So I appreciate Jimmy.
Oh, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Oh, also, I can't. Do not have a window open that I should. I can't see what anybody's saying, so I'm just.
Oh yeah, no.
Okay.
A lot of times, what we do is, just a lot of times people are just nervous to be on a podcast for some reason. I'm like, you're not talking to anyone special, really. Don't be.
Man, stop that.
So like some people would want to see the chat, but for the most part, just chill and enjoy the ride and
Awesome.
yeah. Oh, thanks, Jack, for sharing those links. Jack just shared the link to Lisa and to Tim. I'm trying to think. We've been at it for about an hour and a half. Do we have any more questions for Patrick?
I'm good.
I had one because Jack and I were talking about you right before you got on, and he said something.
Uh-oh.
I
Put
was
me
at
on blast.
no. It was good. It was actually really good and pretty flattering. I went to Adobe Max a couple years ago, and the furniture designer, Jack, you said his name right before we came on the air.
Jonathan Adler?
Yeah, and Jonathan Adler did a presentation there, and he was showing a bunch of the stuff that he's working on and all the housewares and stuff like that. Is that someone that you have worked with and or strive to be similar to?
Um, no, I've never worked with Jonathan Adler. I enjoy his work a lot. I haven't spent a lot of time studying it, but I think what I can say is we have similar uh, uh, inspiration. Um, a lot of my inspiration comes from the Eames, comes from Alexander Gerard, comes from Paul Rand, comes from Mary Blair. Um, I feel like we are both looking into the same pool, and so it's not surprising that the work has the sort of a cousin quality.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird to compare what I'm doing to Jonathan Adler. So, like, I'd be like the buck-tooth freckled cousin, but
Hey, I will tell you, I haven't seen Jonathan Adler do any kind of motion graphics. So take that, Jonathan Adler. No, I'm never gonna work with him ever.
but from everything I understand, he's super cool and nice.
Yeah. Yeah, he seems
Parker
like that.
Hotel's beautiful.
Yeah. A lot of the work that he was showing at Adobe Max, I was just like, like, how do you do all of this stuff and only have 24 hours?
Right.
Yeah.
He's pretty amazing. And it was all his stuff was high quality, and the experimental stuff that he does, like, I'm like,
Yeah.
that's your brain is a completely different place.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah. Landon Wilson asks, are there any companies that you haven't worked for or that you haven't worked with that you wish you had or would like to in the future? Jonathan Adler.
Yeah. There's a ton. I'd really like to work for NASA, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I feel like that would be. They did it. They did a series of posters a few years ago. Worked with some really great teams. I've always been fascinated with space. Let's see.
Space Force might be looking for designers.
My gosh.
Oh,
Did you see
I
that?
might pass
Did you
on
see their
No,
logos?
No, they don't need designers. They're just taking other people's stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
man.
that logo's already funny.
Uh,
I think it's from Star
Yeah,
Wars.
Star
I
Trek.
don't know. Maybe.
I mean, Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. And I feel like that's one of those things where it's not that I don't. There's just so many that it's hard to pick
Right.
out like a specific one.
Right. Right.
NASA's a good one.
That is a good one.
Yeah.
That's the first time I think we've ever asked a question like that anyone said NASA. Yeah. And it gives us a peek into your brain, just a little bit.
Hey,
Just a little.
I had a failed attempt at a math degree before I went to art school. So
Yeah. Them times tables be wearing that ass out.
Times table.
And that's why I don't ever get invited anywhere.
sorry, but okay. Glasses for a second.
All right. Shall we wrap this up?
Sounds good.
That was great.
Good job.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for having me on. This was awesome.
Oh, of course.
Much
This was
much less nerve-wracking than I thought it was going to be.
See, you did good.
Yeah, I told you. Like, there's nothing to be worried about. Have you seen us? I was trying to go in because I wanted Charlie to say something.
Nothing.
So, Patrick, if people want to find you online and follow your work, where can they do that?
It's pretty much Patrick Draws Things. On Instagram at Patrick Draws Things, patrickdrawsthings.com. Those are pretty much my two platforms that I use. I don't really use Twitter. That's it.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for coming on the show. It was wonderful getting to know you, and your work is amazing. So
thanks.
it's going to be fun. Now that I'm following you on all the social medias, I'll be stalking you.
Stalker.
I'll be like, Jonathan Adler, have you seen this?
Oh yeah.
I always save that for after the guests agree to come on. That they're gonna have a stalker on their hands.
It happens.
That's all right.
Hey Charlie, if people are looking for you online, where can they find you?
You can find me at cargocollector.com/Charlie B. Williams. That's my portfolio site. Check it out. You can find me on instagram.com/CharlieBW3. And you can go on over to Almighty Pinterest, pinterest.com/CharlieBW3. Check it out. Stay tuned for my site. I have new stuff coming up in the next couple weeks. Did a new animation that's coming up. Really, really cool. So, did it for a client. Did some freelance work. Pulled my hair out. It was crazy. It's over with. And we'll show it on the show in a couple weeks.
That's cool. Excited. How about you, Jack?
Sketchbookjack.com and on Instagram. And don't forget to check out rbcs.com. We're dropping stuff for the pirate. That's arrbcs.com or piratesrbcs.com. We'll get you to the same place. That's also, I think, that's the same on all the other social medias too. We're starting to drop. That. Speaking of animation, we're dropping some animation. We've got some things cooking.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I was excited when you guys started coming out with stuff. That's that's exciting. I'm a big fan of when people do their own thing. Don't just show up to work. Like, actually be passionate and actually work on your own stuff. Keep your skills pushing. And with that being said, coconutjustice.com, Coconut Justice everywhere else. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Behance, Twitch, Twitch. And this is Sketch Zone episode 195.
Ooh, we're almost there.
Ooh, nice.
So if you go to sketch.zone, you're going to be able to see all those other episodes. And if you are watching live on YouTube, like Landon, we had Jimmy, we had Elizabeth, we had a handful of others that I'm probably going to skip a few of them. Roz was here. Shout out to Roz.
Yeah, thank you everybody for coming.
We like to have you guys be a part of the show. And you guys ask questions, and we'll try to collect them and ask and have you guys be a part of the show. We try to be here every Thursday night, 9 o'clock California time. But if you can't catch us live, obviously you're watching us on YouTube. So go ahead and share, subscribe this episode. And also sketch.zone, like I said, we have all the episodes out there. And there you're going to see links to all the social medias there too. We're on Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. We have a Discord channel, so please follow the links for that. And if you cannot watch us live, you can catch us on Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play Music, iTunes, and, of course, Spotify. Yeah. that's it for us. You guys, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedules to come and hang out with us and get to meet Patrick. Go check out his stuff, man. This dude is talented, and he's bringing the artistic heat, and he's got some cool pillows.
My eyes.
All right.
See you next week.
See you guys.